Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Xianzuan, who was sitting inside a self-driving fort, was looking much better now. It was very difficult to estimate the price of a 100,000-year soul ring. Furthermore, this 100,000-year soul ring was destroyed by his energy-piercing ion ray, which was equivalent to a natural death. Anyone could absorb this soul ring. It was invaluable. The Tang sect had sacrificed a lot this time to deal with the beast wave. This thing was like a reward for them. It was good if the disciples were able to obtain some rewards. Only a few minutes passed before all the all-terrain self-driving forts returned on their own. They scaled the city walls with their long legs, as if they were walking on flat ground. Shixing was wide-eyed in shock as he witnessed this. This is too strong. Not only is their offensive strength terrifying, but their adaptation to all types of terrain is too. Shixing's eyes turned slightly red. He suddenly turned around to look at Xianlina before swallowing hard. Xianlina composed herself. Shixing, what do you want? Yes, Shixing. What do you want? Are you harboring any ideas about my wife? The tall, burly, and bald Qian Duo had arrived at the top of the city wall, and quickly walked towards Xianlina. He was nervous as he looked at Shixing. Shixing's lips twisted a little and he thought to himself, only you can handle this martial goddess. Of course he didn't dare to say that out loud. Dean Qian, don't misunderstand. Qian Duo snapped, look at how red your face is. You look like you're going to orgasm. How can I not misunderstand? Stand there and don't move. Tell me whatever you need to. Shixing almost spat blood out and snapped, don't worry, I won't snatch your wife from you. Deans, I want this all-terrain self-driving fort. No matter what it costs, the Shrek City Defense Army needs to be fully equipped. We'll take whatever there is. It's best if everyone has one. If that's possible, we won't be afraid of this beast wave, and I'd even dare to attack the Great Star Do Forest itself. Xianlina was amused. I knew you wouldn't be able to resist it. However, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Do you think it's easy to get a hold of something like this? You've already witnessed how strong it is. It's costly to manufacture one of these. Overall, all the self-driving forts, apart from Teacher Xian's own Class 8 Soul Tool, are all Class 6 Soul Tools. They are defensively weak, but their offensive strength and mobility are extremely great. Their manufacturing cost is... Shixing turned pale after Xianlina muttered a number. So expensive. However, this is really good stuff. It's fine even if not everyone is equipped with one of it. Give me 500 of them first. Shixing grit his teeth as he spoke. After all, Shrek City's defense army was in charge of protecting Shrek City. They couldn't skimp on their equipment. A war was the best way to test whether they were well equipped. What had happened earlier tempted Shixing to own one of these all-terrain self-driving forts. Xianlina replied, we don't even have 500 of them. We ordered 100 from the Tang sect. These are all that we have. Currently, the Tang sect has manufactured 61 of them, and they've already used up a large amount of rare metals. We haven't even paid them. They were the ones who paid for the rare metals. Furthermore, you've also seen how many stationary soul cannon shells the Tang sect took out this time. Who knows how many of them will be left over once this war is over. Do you think the Academy has so much money to give them? Let's not even talk about ordering another batch of these soul tools. Shixing was a little depressed. Yes. The Tang sect had sacrificed a lot. Even if they didn't ask for any rewards, they should at least recoup the costs that they had incurred. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to survive, much less grow. This fight would also drain the Academy greatly. However, the all-terrain self-driving forts were simply too attractive to him. Instantly, the Time Doluo was stuck in a dilemma. At this point, Xianzuan left his self-driving fort and came over in front of all of them. Mission accomplished. Xianzuan said as he tossed and caught a red soul bone in his hands. This soul bone seemed to be an arm bone, but which arm it came from was unknown. Xianlina and Qianduo's eyes turned red when they saw this soul bone. It was a 100,000-year soul bone that carried 2 soul skills. 100,000-year soul ring and bone were considered the most valuable treasures in the world of soul masters right now. There wasn't any way of putting a value on such a soul ring and soul bone. Xian Zuan looked at them and said, if the Academy puts out a suitable price, or is willing to exchange rare metals with a similar value for them, we won't mind selling them. The Tang sect was the one who had provided all the resources and manpower in the earlier fight. Xian Zuan wasn't going to give away this soul ring and soul bone. They definitely belonged to the Tang sect. Xian Lina laughed bitterly. All right, Teacher Xian. You can keep it. We can't afford them. Let's talk about the rest after we survive this beast wave. Hall Master. At this point, the disciples from the Tang sect's Soul Tool Hall all exited their self-driving forts and quickly gathered around Xian Zuan. Xian Lina saw that they were each holding some weird equipment that wasn't very large. Xian Zuan smiled and said, we collected some soul rings without any owners. Most of them are 1,000-year or 10,000-year soul rings. I wonder if anyone from the Academy or the Shrek City Defense Army needs them. Soul rings without owners. Shixing's eyes opened wide again. Xian Zuan nodded and said, the soul tools that are used to kill soul beasts can be specially processed to alter their internal structures, which removes the aura of a soul master and makes any soul rings produced ownerless. We used soul ring storage tools to keep them, and we can provide them to any soul master who wants to absorb them. Yes. I want all of them. We can negotiate the price. Shixing was completely decisive. He immediately expressed his wish in front of Xian Zuan before Xian Lina and Qian Duojuo managed to do so. Yes. Of course he wanted all of them. They were all either 1,000 or 10,000-year soul rings. He had witnessed how many of these soul rings the Tang sect had collected earlier. 1,000-year soul rings were already considered very good for the outer courtyard disciples of Shrek Academy. 10,000-year soul rings were even more valuable. The Academy didn't have too high of a demand for these soul rings. After all, the students were encouraged to obtain their soul rings quickly when their cultivations reached a bottleneck during the semester. However, things weren't that simple in the Shrek City Defense Army. There were more than 3,000 soul masters in Shrek City's defense army. Most of them had either graduated or were eliminated from Shrek Academy's outer courtyard. They remained in the city and joined the defense army to earn some experience. Out of these 3,000 soul masters, there were many whose cultivations had reached a bottleneck. They were all born in Shrek City, and they were quite proud. As their cultivation gradually grew, they weren't too anxious to obtain soul rings. If there weren't any suitable soul rings, they wouldn't easily absorb one. However, Xian Zuan had collected countless soul rings this time, and they were even all either 1,000 or 10,000-year soul rings. They were considered great things by the soul masters of Shrek City's defense army. Shixing wouldn't be the one to foot the bill for all these soul rings, though. How expensive were Shrek Academy's tuition fees? Those who were able to study in Shrek Academy were well-to-do. Many of them were even disciples of sects. Of course they had to pay for the soul rings if they wanted them. Xian Zuan nodded and said, no problem. Later I'll get my disciples to find out the number of soul rings that we've collected. After that, I'll need you to send some people to differentiate between the types of soul rings that we have, which will make it more convenient for your soul masters to absorb them. As for the price of these soul rings, I'm sure Shrek Academy will offer us a reasonable amount. It's fine even if your soul masters can't pay up immediately. We just need to record their names in a register. I only have one request. I hope that the Academy can help us monitor the payments for these soul rings. We are also willing to exchange these soul rings for rare metals if you have them. Profiteer, Shixing cursed silently in his heart. Even Xian Lina couldn't help but shake her head silently. Xian Zuan seemed like a generous person, but he wasn't going to give any concessions. The Tang sect had just forced a beast wave back. Under such circumstances, would Shrek Academy really dock the number of soul rings they'd collected? Definitely not. As for the prices of the soul rings, would Shrek Academy dare to quote the Tang sect a low price? At least they had to be reasonable and offer prices recognized by the world of soul masters. These prices were based on the standards set by those who specially led people out to hunt soul beasts for soul rings. They were definitely not low. Different soul rings were priced differently. It depended on how many soul rings they had collected. Money-wise, Xian Zuan passed the problem to Shrek Academy. Weren't they trying to enhance the strength of the city defense army? If the soul masters paid for the soul rings on their own, they would find it very difficult to gather so much money at once. However, they just needed to sign a guarantee and Shrek Academy would be their guarantor. If the money couldn't be claimed in the end, the Tang sect could just find Shrek Academy instead of Shrek City's defense army. Was he really a soul engineer, and not a businessman? Xian Lina, Qian Duo, and Shishing all had this thought in their mind. Even so, this was still a good thing for Shrek. After fusing with these soul rings, the strength of Shrek City's defense army was bound to increase. At this critical moment, increasing one's abilities would help one in his own survival. Their opinion of Xian Ziwen might become even more drastic if they found out that the soul ring storage tools could only preserve the soul rings for a short period of time. However, no matter what, the beast wave had been pushed back temporarily. Xian Ziwen allowed some of the Soul Tool Hall disciples to follow Shishing to calculate the number of soul rings that they had collected. He himself didn't leave, but asked Xian Lina, Dean Xian, what do you think about our all-terrain self-driving forts? Xian Lina smiled and replied, of course they are great. Didn't you see how red the time Doluor's eyes were? That first cannon strike of yours played a very critical role. Otherwise, the carpet attacks might not have been able to stop the soul beasts from charging over, even though they are strong. Most importantly, they were frightened by your first attack. Xian Ziwen laughed bitterly. Do you know what price we had to pay for that first cannon strike? He intentionally lowered his voice as he spoke. While he was very immersed in his work on soul tools, he wasn't a senseless person. Xian Lina quietly stepped forward and asked, what do you mean? Xian Ziwen answered, that strike was an energy-piercing ion ray that I invented. It causes high energy compression, and my self-driving fort is the core of it. My self-driving fort is actually a Class 8 energy compression, auxiliary type soul tool. The main cannons that the rest used are piercing cannons that have already been compressed. I used energy ions to integrate them before firing and performing short-term control. I only developed this because I'm a Class 8 soul engineer who's captivated by the strength of Class 9 soul tools. You also witnessed how strong it was. Its destructive strength is even slightly stronger than most ordinary Class 9 soul tools. It's even comparable to the Starsky Doluor's Sun Moon Divine Needle. However, it can't compare to the Sun Moon Divine Needle in terms of the effective range of its attack. Xian Lina said, it's already very great. Are there any flaws? Xian Ziwen nodded and laughed bitterly, yes, its flaw is that it drains too much soul power. To compress and prevent the compressed soul power from exploding, more soul power has to be drained. That strike just now completely used up the soul power in 120 Class 6 sealed milk bottles. The soul rays that were fired to suppress the soul beasts on the ground were actually powered by the students from the Academy's Soul Engineering Department and my disciples from the Tang Sect's Soul Tool Hall. They were only able to maintain their attack for 15 minutes, which means that our attacks would have ended if the enemies didn't retreat within 15 minutes. We'll need to change all of those milk bottles. Right now, we have less than 200 sealed milk bottles left, so we'll only be able to last for another 2 hours. Xian Lina was shocked after hearing Xian Ziwen's words. One attack used up all the soul power in 120 Class 6 sealed milk bottles. The total soul power in 120 Class 6 sealed milk bottles was even greater than the soul power an ultimate Doluor had. While that attack was ferocious, it wasn't as strong as an all-out strike by an ultimate Doluor. Xian Ziwen was telling her that the attack earlier couldn't be replicated again. The price to pay was too great. After taking a deep breath, Xian Lina gazed deeply at Xian Ziwen as she said, Teacher Xian, you've already done very well. With this deterrence, I believe it'll be a lot longer before the next attack arrives. Xian Ziwen nodded and said, I thought of that, too. Let's recover our soul power as quickly as possible, and hope the beasts take a longer rest. This will give us time to charge our sealed milk bottles. Hopefully. Xian Lina laughed bitterly. The terrifying strike that had drained the soul power from 120 sealed milk bottles left a deep impression on the soul beast army. Not only was this attack extremely powerful and threatening, but it even caused the soul beast army to suffer heavy casualties. 100,000-year soul beast had lost his life, and several thousand soul beasts, including 2/3 of the soul beast aerial army, were killed. After this defeat, some conflicts ensued between the soul beasts, which led to a temporary retreat of the beast wave. Shrek City was finally given a breather. The disciples from the Tang Sect's Soul Tool Hall and the students from Shrek Academy's Soul Tool Department started to get busy with this time that they had been afforded. They quickly repaired the damaged soul tools. The soul masters were also given time to rest. Once they recovered their soul power, they would immediately start charging the sealed milk bottles. Even Soul Doluor from the academy were charging the sealed milk bottles. On this battlefield, one's individual strength was considered very insignificant unless one was at the level of Elder Xian, or Di Qian. The beast wave had lasted for a day and a half, but everyone in Shrek City knew that the earlier attack by the Soul Beast army was still just a probe. They hadn't given their all yet, and were only weakening Shrek's overall power. They were looking for the best opportunity to launch an all-out attack. The beast wave pulled back for 6 hours, which gave everyone enough time to rest and recharge. However, everyone in Shrek City started to turn serious after the Soul Beast army returned, ready to attack again, after those 6 hours. This time, the number of Soul Beasts was even greater. However, they didn't deploy their aerial army like before, perhaps because their aerial army had been trounced earlier. Furthermore, the Soul Beasts didn't charge blindly and wildly towards Shrek City this time. They scattered and slowly inched closer to the city. It felt as if they were forming a huge pincer that was about to clip onto Shrek City. The Soul Beast army didn't seem to be as dominant as before, but those who were sharp could tell that Shrek City was in trouble this time. It was because the Soul Beasts seemed to have forsaken their pride and stopped charging directly to assault Shrek City from the front. The formation that they had adopted evidently signaled the fact that they wanted to encircle the city before attacking from all fronts. On the top of the city wall, emergency discussions were held, and all the elders from the Sea God's Pavilion ascended to the top of the city wall. After a brief discussion, they immediately acted. The southern side of the city had the strongest defense. However, the defense of the city had to adapt if there were any changes to the offensive focal point of the Soul Beast army. At such a time, the flexibility of the all-terrain self-driving forts was very important. The 61 all-terrain self-driving forts were spread out across the top of the city wall rapidly, and started to distribute themselves proportionally around the other 3 sides. As there were more Zhuge divine crossbow cannons on the southern side, the defense over there should be able to hold off the Soul Beasts. However, the commanders of the Soul Beast army seemed to be smarter this time. Just as everyone in Shrek City expected, the Soul Beast army that comprised more than 100,000 Soul Beasts encircled Shrek City. However, they didn't attack after encircling the city. They stopped around 10 kilometers away from Shrek City, and they seemed to be resting. Only very powerful stationary soul cannon shells could reach 10 kilometers away. However, there were many strong Soul Beasts in the Soul Beast army too, who were also adept at long-range attacks. It wouldn't be too difficult for them to intercept the top-tier stationary soul cannon's shells, since there wouldn't be many of them either. As a result, Shrek didn't do anything, and the Soul Beast army didn't move. However, the difference between them and the Soul Beast army was that the Soul Beast army could choose to attack at any time, but they couldn't. They could only passively wait for the Soul Beasts to attack. Without sufficient troops, Shrek City was under great pressure from the Soul Beast army. No one knew when the Soul Beasts were going to attack. They could only wait and remain alert. Such a wait was torturous. Fortunately, what the Soul Masters needed now was rest. However, the Soul Beast army didn't give them much more time. Outside the southern city wall, a jade-green figure opened her wings and rose into the sky. It was Bai Ji. After a few hours of rest and reorganization, she had already fully recovered. She opened her wings, and jade-green light shone brightly. Her jade-green feathers emitted bright light as they expanded. Very soon, her wings had extended more than 100 meters in either direction. Her appearance also caused the Soul Beasts close to the southern city wall to roar in excitement. They all stood up from the ground and stared at Shrek City with fierce looks in their eyes. To the east of the city, another figure gradually rose into the sky. This figure had 3 heads, and scarlet golden fur grew on its head. Each head of this figure resembled a lion's, but they were even more ferocious. It was the Scarlet King, who was a 3-headed scarlet devil mastiff. To the west of the city, yet another huge figure drifted in mid-air. In terms of aura, he appeared to be much stronger than the Scarlet King and Bai Ji. He was more than 15 meters tall, and there was thick dark golden fur on his body. His arms were extremely long, as they drooped along the sides of his body. Even given the size of his body, his arms were still long enough to extend below his knees. This meant that his arms were more than 10 meters long, and they were also extremely thick. His shoulders were the most exaggerated, swelling up like little mountains. To everyone from the Tang sect, such a soul beast was very familiar. This was because there were 2 little fellows in the Tang sect that were of the same species as this soul beast. It was just that the difference in their sizes was too great. Yes, this extremely large soul beast was a dark golden terraclaw bear, which was often recognized as an exterminator of forests and a destroyer in the world of soul masters. This bear was undoubtedly the ruler of all bears, the Bear Lord, who was ranked 6th among the 10 great savage beasts. He had a 470,000-year cultivation. It was appropriate to call him the number 1 bear in the history of the Doluo continent. In terms of rank and cultivation, he wasn't as strong as Bai Ji. However, the combination of Bai Ji and the Scarlet King wouldn't even be comparable to him in terms of fighting strength. In fact, Di Qian was the only one in the Great Star Do Forest who could tame the Bear Lord. The northern side of the city, which was the furthest from the Great Star Do Forest, was also being surrounded by the Soul Beast army right now. In mid-air, there was also another figure. It was a human-shaped soul beast this time. He was aesthetically pleasing, like Bai Ji, and different from the Scarlet King and Bear Lord, who preferred to appear in their original forms. He adopted the appearance of a middle-aged man. He wasn't particularly handsome, and his face was slightly pale. His eyes were a deep jade green that could penetrate through one's soul. A jade green glow shone amidst this depth and serenity, but this glow was starkly different from the elegant jade green that Bai Ji emitted. He wasn't considered very large, but he was extremely slender. He was wearing a long, dark green robe. It moved even without any wind, fluttering slightly to and fro. His hair was also dark green, but it was a little too long. It was more than 10 meters in length as it flowed behind his back. To be able to become a commander of the Soul Beast army, just like the other 3 savage beasts, he was naturally a savage beast himself. 5 of the 10 great savage beasts lived in the Great Star Do Forest. Apart from Di Qian, Bai Ji, the Scarlet King and the Bear Lord, there was one more soul beast. It was the Myriad Demon King, a demon eye tree that was ranked 5th among the 10 great savage beasts. According to the legends, the Myriad Demon King ruled over all the plant-type soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest. Compared to animal-type soul beasts, plant-type soul beasts found it more difficult to survive. They grew slower than animal-type soul beasts when they were young. Generally speaking, plant-type soul beasts had to reach 1,000-year cultivation before they could protect themselves, whereas animal-type soul beasts already possessed fighting strength at a 10-year cultivation. However, there were innately gifted plant-type soul beasts. When they grew, they were even scarier than animal-type soul beasts. The Myriad Demon King was an example. He was originally a demon eye tree that had grown at the edge of the forest. There was nothing special about his lineage. While demon eye trees were considered a rare species in the Great Star Do Forest, they weren't considered very strong, even if they cultivated into soul beasts. This was because they were considered spiritual type, and were most adept at using their tree eye to numb and control their opponents. After that, they would gradually use their corrosive sap to kill them. While their opponents rotted away, they would turn into nourishment for these demon eye trees. In terms of lethality, demon eye trees weren't special among plant-type soul beasts. However, the Myriad Demon King was an anomaly. He was considered an anomaly because there were other types of plant-type soul beasts that grew around him. The demon eye tree's survival rate was considered quite high among plant-type soul beasts, as they didn't have any fruit that other soul beasts found extremely tempting. In addition, they even released a pungent smell. Generally speaking, it was not common for other soul beasts to take interest in them. But there were a few rare types of plants that had lived around the Myriad Demon King, which included immortal spirit grass. Immortal spirit grass was naturally psychic. The moment they grew, they possessed intelligence that was similar to ordinary soul beasts. After some time, they would become stronger. At the same time, they were extremely nutritious, and were considered nourishment for both soul beasts and soul masters. It was just that the growth conditions needed for immortal spirit grasses were very strict. Even in the Great Star Do Forest, which was an excellent natural habitat for soul beasts, they rarely appeared. 1,000-year immortal spirit grass was already considered a treasure. The greatest advantage the Myriad Demon King had over this immortal spirit grass was that he was born 10,000 years earlier. He soon discovered that an immortal spiritual grass had grown nearby. At that point in time, he already possessed his own intelligence. Furthermore, he had some abilities then, and could at least spread his scent over a larger area. As a result, the Myriad Demon King took great care of this immortal spirit grass. No matter how gifted or intelligent immortal spirit grass was, it was only like a piece of blank paper after it was born. Furthermore, immortal spirit grass would only treat soul beasts and humans as enemies. It would never treat another plant like the Myriad Demon King as an enemy. The Myriad Demon King protected this immortal spirit grass, using his pungent smell, until it grew to a 1,000-year cultivation. At that point in time, this immortal spirit grass already treated him as its best friend and even developed a heavy sense of reliance on him. After tolerating it for 1,000 years, the Myriad Demon King finally made his move on this immortal spirit grass. In fact, the Myriad Demon King didn't know what the result would be after he devoured this immortal spirit grass. He was just making a wild attempt, because he was indignant. He didn't want to remain at the edge of the Great Star Doe Forest for his entire life. He was very envious and jealous of those strong soul beasts. This was why he took a gamble to see what benefits he might possibly obtain from this immortal spirit grass. This 1,000-year immortal spirit grass was ultimately unprepared against the Myriad Demon King, who had plotted this for centuries. Under the corrosion of the Myriad Demon King's poison, it melted. The Myriad Demon King uprooted it completely and turned into fluid before smearing this fluid on his body. To him, he would have only wasted 1,000 years, even if he failed. To a plant-type soul beast, 1,000 years wasn't considered a long time. From that point onwards, the Myriad Demon King entered an extremely long period of torment. While this immortal spirit grass was dead, it carried a strong spirit of vengeance, which made it difficult for him to fuse with it. Normally, a demon-eye tree and an immortal spirit grass were two incompatible plant-type soul beasts. However, a miracle happened when this immortal spirit grass vengeance and the Myriad Demon King's persistence combined together. They started to fuse together in a very special way. While the fusion was slow, it managed to change many of the Myriad King's innate abilities. As time passed, he was no longer purely a demon-eye tree anymore. This evolution process continued for 100 years. When the Myriad Demon King regained consciousness again, he discovered that he had become abnormally strong. He possessed the innate abilities of the most outstanding plant-type soul beast. The Myriad Demon King was extremely determined, having tolerated 100 years of pain to complete the fusion. He didn't venture deeper into the Great Star Doe Forest after the fusion. He continued to cultivate where he was born, and slowly devoured soul beasts of lower cultivations. The current Myriad Demon King was a result of his tolerance in the past. He had a 530,000-year cultivation now, and was ranked 5th among the 10 great savage beasts. He was ranked lower than Bai Ji, but higher than the Bear Lord. Of the 5 great savage beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest, the Myriad Demon King was probably the one that most wouldn't want to face if they had to fight one of them if they understood all of their characters. He didn't possess the power of Di Qian, or the explosiveness of the Bear Lord, but he was as vicious as a venomous snake, and even possessed a forbearance that was superior to most ordinary soul beasts. He was definitely a terrifying enemy. After Di Qian discovered his existence, he wanted to forcefully keep him within the slaughtering grounds, so that he could monitor the Myriad Demon King. This was because the Myriad Demon King already ruled over the soul beasts in more than 1/3 of the peripheral region of the Great Star Doe Forest. With his help, the plant-type soul beasts were able to develop rapidly. Di Qian didn't kill him out of fear. Plants were considered the last line of defense for the Great Star Doe Forest. The Myriad Demon King ruled over most of the plant-type soul beasts, which made him extremely important to the Great Star Doe Forest. Even Di Qian didn't dare to kill him. Di Qian even believed that his existence was more important than Bai Ji's. Right now, there weren't any plant-type soul beasts in the soul beast army underneath the Myriad Demon King at the northern side of Shrek City. This was also a requirement that Di Qian had for him before this war started. All the plant-type soul beasts that he commanded were not allowed to be part of this beast wave. The reason was very simple. They were needed to offer an escape route for the Great Star Doe Forest. If this beast wave failed and the soul beasts suffered heavy losses, the plant-type soul beasts that the Myriad Demon King controlled could at least protect the soul beast army as they retreated back into the forest. An emerald swan, a demon-eye tree, a dark golden terraclaw bear, and a 3-headed scarlet devil mastiff. Right now, 4 of the great savage beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest had appeared on this battlefield. These 4 savage beasts surrounded Shrek City, which meant that this war between the soul beasts and Shrek Academy was about to enter its climax. Shrek City was waiting for reinforcements, and the 5 great savage beasts naturally knew it. Shrek Academy was simply too important. If Shrek City was overrun, there would be one less force to restrain the soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest. The 3 empires in the Doluo continent wouldn't be willing to see something like that happen. It was totally necessary to send reinforcements to aid Shrek Academy. Shrek City was stalling for time, while the Soul Beasts were naturally fighting for time. If they managed to breach Shrek City and destroy Shrek Academy before the reinforcements arrived, whatever reinforcements arrived after that would be meaningless and insignificant. As a result, these four savage beasts decided to launch an assault against Shrek City even after the heavy losses they had suffered earlier. Of course, this didn't mean that they would participate in the fight directly. Instead, they were going to hold the fort in 4 different directions, and the intensity of their offense would vary. The Soul Beasts were targeting the overstretched manpower of Shrek City's defense army. Even if they had to forsake their pride, they had to seize this opportunity to destroy Shrek City. This showed how determined they were. They wanted to welcome Di Tian back with a huge victory. The Bear Lord unleashed a shocking and furious roar. He was at the western side of the city, and it was his side that made the first move. The terrifying beast wave started to surge forward like a tidal wave. The commanders at each of the other sides also gave the order to attack. Shrek City was now being attacked from all sides, and it seemed as if a tsunami was sweeping toward the city from all directions. This was the true strength of this beast wave. When they attacked all out, they managed to fully tap into their absolute numerical advantage. All of the elders of the Sea God's Pavilion had gathered at the top of the city wall by now. They and the inner courtyard disciples were distributed along sections of the city wall. The all-terrain self-driving forts and Zhuge divine crossbow cannons were also ready to be used. The timed Oluo Shishing quickly rose into the sky, and his voice echoed as he used a powerful sound-amplifying soul tool. Warriors of Shrek City, teachers and students of Shrek Academy, I am the city defense officer, Shishing. The Soul Beast army is coming for us. This is a fight that we can't back away from. The result of failure will be death. It's not just us that will be dead. All the civilians in Shrek City will also be dead along with us. For Shrek's glory, and for ourselves, I implore all of you to bring forth your greatest courage and strength to fight. He shouted the last few words in fury. Long live Shrek! Long live Shrek! Long live Shrek! Glory to Shrek! Glory to Shrek! Glory to Shrek! Let's fight for Shrek's glory. They were burning with passion now. At this moment, everyone from Shrek, regardless of whether they were a soldier, a student, a teacher, or an elder, whether they came from the inner or outer courtyard, all came together as one. They only had one goal: force the beast wave back. It was the only way that they could ensure their survival. Shrek's strength was finally unleashed at this moment. Under Shishing's orders, the Zhuge divine crossbow cannons fired. A piercing sound echoed as streaks of dazzling light shot above the city wall. These streaks of lights were scattered in all directions. Even with Bai Ji's abilities, she couldn't cover them all. This time, the cannon shells seemed to be larger than before. They didn't just cover a region that spanned a 5-kilometer radius with the city wall at the center. Rather, they were targeted toward further distances. Every streak of dazzling light left a resplendent plume behind it as it moved in the air. The stationary cannon shells that came from the Tang sect were finally being fired. Stationary soul cannon shells weren't just strong. They were also able to cover long distances and drained the cannons the least. They wouldn't cause the cannons to overheat, as they were propelled forward using their own strength. They also didn't exhaust too much soul power. The stationary soul cannon shells were used first, for fear that the Zhuge divine crossbow cannons wouldn't be able to be fired if they overheated. This video will end here.